let's start this a little early. And let's start with the reality that every creator comes to their creations with an assumption or set of assumptions. And this veracity check is about understanding and checking my assumptions. So the question we're looking at today is, will HPE be the most important subject in school moving forward? I've created a research brief and a run sheet, so I'm going to go through this. But let's start with assumption one. The first assumption is, and this is my assumption, is that moving forward, human beings, human cognitive labor will become less and less desired in the workforce. We will be using human cognitive labor less and less. Oh, I should take a step back. It's on my run sheet. I'm not even following my run sheet. I should let you know that I'm in a place called Svoboda Park. And this is kind of my standard default place to come to Livestream. I've come here today because it's a low cognitive load to set up, because I'm using new software. I'm pretty new to live streaming. So this is Svoboda Park, a place pretty close to where I live. And like I said, we're looking at the question, the research question, will health and physical education become the most important subject in school? And I'm working from that assumption, which is my assumption, that AI moving forward, by the time the 10-year-olds in my class get into the workforce, I think there's very little chance that many of them will actually be doing cognitive labor. Some people might be doing physical labor. Maybe the robots won't be doing everything, the fine motor skills and everything that humans can do. But I think there's a pretty good chance that the cognitive work will be gone. For example, this week, one of my daughters was really sick with the flu. So she rang up the doctor to get an appointment and immediately was picked up by an AI receptionist. So even in this area here, the doctors are using AI receptionists. So what do you think? I'm here today, I would like you to check my assumptions before I put this research brief into Gemini Notebook. Now, I should explain a bit about what I do with Gemini Notebook and what Gemini Notebook is. I ask the questions while I'm out in the wild, while I'm traveling. The questions come to me usually when I'm traveling and I'm out filming something else. And I go back, when I arrive back to Australia or to home, I will then research the background to that question or potential answers to that question. And then I plug that into Gemini Notebook, what used to be called Notebook LM, and set it so that it only addresses the research brief. It doesn't go to the internet in general. So if there's any mistakes, it's due to my work in the research brief, not because Gemini Notebook has pulled random stuff off the internet. So this research brief, of course, comes from my assumptions. So assumption one, that AI will probably eventually take over most cognitive work from humans. Assumption two is that replacing human labor will lead to a state for many people of sedentary meaninglessness. A lot of people get their self-esteem and their meaning from their job, particularly if their job is, imagine you're a university lecturer, right? And all of a sudden there is AI that can do a better job than you. And there probably already is. In fact, some people like Mo Gadat, I often talk about him, and Geoffrey Hinton. These are people that have been working in AI, Geoffrey Hinton is called the godfather of AI, or the grandfather of AI, I can't remember exactly. But these people know what they're talking about. And they say that pretty soon AI is going to be as good or above university professor level work. Look at maths. AI is solving maths problems that humans have struggled with for centuries. So think 10 years ahead. Think when my 10-year-old students are entering the workforce. Let's say they've done university and they're entering workforce at around 20 or so. That's 10 years away. If now AI is cognitively able to do maths better than probably any individual human on the planet, what will AI be like then? So most people are not advanced mathematicians. So AI, like let's say you're doing a teacher's job, or what's a accountant, right? Doctor, radiologist. And right now, you are better than AI. Will you still be better in 10 years' time? Now, a lot of people base their self-esteem, or a large part of their self-esteem, perhaps all of their self-esteem, on the ability to do this cognitive work, like the lecturer, the radiologist, the doctor, the accountant. They base their self-esteem on being a good accountant, being good with numbers, or good as a wordsmith. What will that be like in 10 years' time? Now, I do have to be honest that, well, not really honest. I do need to come out and say one of the reasons I've started live streaming is because AI is getting so good at creating video that my trips around the world, my trips to Africa, Europe, Turkey, all the places I go to try to find questions and answers to questions, someone could be just sitting at home. I could be sitting at home and just creating those on my computer, getting AI to create it. I don't think AI could probably recreate the things that I do at the moment, not because they're so good, but because they're so bad. Right? You probably couldn't put a prompt into AI to say, have some hairy old man in rural Uganda skipping rope, talking about the benefits of skipping, and have it look out of focus as if it's been filmed by an Insta360 camera. We're probably not at that stage yet, but pretty soon we probably will be. But live streaming, you're looking at me now with steam coming out of my mouth, and I don't think that AI could, it definitely couldn't now, create a live stream like this. It couldn't create this video on the fly. Imagine the processing power to do that with the sun rising behind me, my motorbike, an Insta360 camera up there, another Insta360 camera there. So I live stream because of the assumption that this is proof of human. This proves that there's a human doing this, and that may retain some value. So let's get back to the assumptions that are in the research brief. Now, my third assumption is that the second assumption was about sedentary meaninglessness. And my third assumption is about a potential answer to sedentary meaninglessness. And it's a term that I call safe hard things. I've done some research and it seems to be that that's a term that I've coined. And that term comes from basically a lifelong quest to find let's get it on there, the answers to the riddle of steel. Hello, how are you? Good morning. Answers to the riddle of steel. For me, the riddle of steel, answers to the riddle of steel, are finding things that make you strong. When someone's going down the path of sedentary meaninglessness because they have lost their cognitive work, what do they get their strength from? Let's take that back a bit. Let's look at the concept of antifragility. Antifragility is where, like, imagine you've got a ball bouncing. I've talked about this before. You're bouncing a ball. A ball is resilient. It bounces back, but eventually it'll wear out. With a human, or most other living organisms, when the right amount of safe, hard things is applied, in other words, the right amount of stressful stimulus is applied, and then there's appropriate recovery, then that organism, let's just talk humans, that human will get better. If you lift heavy things, your muscles will become stronger. If you rest your muscles too much, your muscles will become weaker. And the bones and the connective tissue, we all know that. That's really basic. Same thing happens with your mind. If you are not doing cognitive work with your mind, of course your mind is going to, I'm going to use the word atrophy because that's the word we use for muscles, right? When you don't use a muscle, the muscle atrophies, it becomes smaller, it becomes weaker, it's connective. Your body is highly efficient and it will retake up all the proteins and everything else, and your bones and muscles won't be a strong connective tissue. So the same thing happens in your brain. If you're not using your brain uses up so much energy just to exist. If you're not using your brain for cognitive work, your brain will deteriorate. It will atrophy. So my assumption, my proposal is that moving forward into a world where I think AI will probably take over most human cognitive work and quite possibly human physical work within the next 10, 20 years. So how do we maintain our bodies and our minds if we're not required to do that to earn an income? How do we maintain our self-esteem, our self-efficacy, when we're not required to do that to earn a living? Christmas time last year, I was picking up litter outside of Buckingham Palace and contemplating the idea of an AI Santa. And what I mean by that, and Mogadat, this is where he's coming from. He states that we will probably go through a period, he says, maybe 10 years of struggle. And then we'll be in a utopia where everything we want is given to us. Basically, you want an iPhone, you pluck it off a virtual tree. You want a Lamborghini, you just go get one because these things are so cheap to produce. In a world like that, there's potentially no struggle. What happens to our bodies and our minds when there's no struggle? You don't have to struggle for anything at all. What I'm proposing is that we go down the path of looking for the things that make us strong. Looking for the things that make us strong that don't damage us. Safe, hard things. And we intentionally do that because we have an understanding that our bodies and minds require struggle. We impose struggle upon ourselves because struggle is not imposed upon us anymore because of the AI Santa. So those are my assumptions. That's the end of my run sheet here. I'm going to talk about one more thing. I had an idea this morning. Have you seen Blade Runner? In Blade Runner, the main replicant, he's holding a dove. And he lowers himself down in front of Harrison Ford. And he looks at him and he says, I've seen things. And he goes on for a monologue. It's an amazing monologue. But in the end, he says that he doesn't want those things to disappear like tears in the rain. I'm not a replicant, but I'm a little bit like that. I've seen things. I've been to a lot of places. I've seen the abolishment of apartheid in South Africa back in the early 90s. I've been back to Africa a couple of times to visit people who have gone through extreme adversity and come out the other side stronger. I've been to Europe to see a man who runs around in a banana suit picking up litter, trying to make a living from that. And he's been successful. It's a struggle, but he's been successful and becoming stronger because of that. I want to share those experiences, but I want to do it in a non-egocentric way. First of all, by not using my own name. Second, I want to do it through the lens of my assumptions. Because I think, like I said at the start of this live stream, if you're going to listen to any creator, you really need to know their assumptions to decide whether you're going to believe what they say, believe the solutions, understand where their questions are coming from, understand what led to the creation of a particular research brief. So if you're going to listen to me, I think you probably need to understand where my assumptions came from. So I'm going to go back through my old journals. I'm going to go back through my memories. And I'm going to start creating some videos about the sources of my assumptions, the experiences, the things I've seen that have led to those assumptions. It's not going to be about me. I'm going to try to keep it as non-egocentric as possible, because I think one of my assumptions is that egocentricity is actually toxic to a person. So we should try to avoid it wherever possible. I've got a whole video about that if you want to look up the video about egocentrism. It was done with an amazing documentary film creator from here in Brisbane. But I've paddled on enough. It's Saturday morning. There are magpies warbling behind me there. They're telling me it's time to get up and go and do something. I'm on the back of my motorbike with a bucket, and it's chocker full of bottles and cans. I'm going to go and take that and trade it in and get some money from that and use that to promote wellness videos. And then I'm going to go out and pick up some more. That's what we call plogging. That's doing anything active outside while picking up litter at the same time. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend and that you get a chance to go out and do something that's meaningful to you.